So even as someone that largely enjoyed Blumhouse's Halloween trilogy, I can admit there were quite a few missteps here. Today, I want to look at what they could have changed to make this a perfect trilogy. Hey, what's up everybody? Nick here, and today I want to talk to you guys about Blumhouse's Halloween trilogy, and I want to lay the groundwork for how they could have fixed it and made it truly a great trilogy. Now, as I said at the top, I like this trilogy, and if you know my channel, you know I like this trilogy, and I actually think it got better as it went on, but I'm in the minority opinion there, and I understand that. Even the people that really liked how it started or really liked how it ended, we all have issues with it as a whole because it just didn't really feel like a cohesive three-part story. And a lot of that is because it really wasn't. Sure, they had some ideas from the inception, but they did not have this thing mapped out for 3 movies. And it really goes to show by the time you get to Halloween Kills and definitely Halloween Ends. But to look at how they could have fixed this, you gotta go back to the beginning. Starting with Halloween 2018, I think the first thing they should have done was kept Laurie as Michael's sister. Now I know this one right off the top is probably going to be one of the more controversial ones because a lot of people like myself were happy that they were going back to Michael Myers was a motiveless killer. However, the way they played up Laurie's trauma so much and then getting into Halloween Kills really playing up the trauma of the town and the hysteria that Michael Myers has created, I think it would have been a whole lot more believable if Michael's rampage was more than just a few victims 40 plus years ago. Halloween 2 really upped the body count. It really upped the ante. It would make sense that after that night of those 2 movies, the town of Haddonfield would look at Michael Myers as a legend, as a specter of evil. Furthermore, it would have really helped sell me on Laurie's portrayal in Halloween 2018. In Halloween 2018, I would argue, I think successfully so, she's far more damaged than she was in H2O. And again, I've gone over this with people about how we can't really begin to understand how each individual person deals with trauma and grief and loss, but I just think it was played up quite a bit for somebody that lost a couple friends 40 years ago. Now, if the events of Halloween 2 were canon and all those other people died and she almost died yet again, I would buy it, especially if she knew that that was her brother. But in Halloween 2018, it just felt way over the top because they wiped out some of the most consequential things from the Halloween franchise. Not just the brother-sister connection, but the carnage of Halloween 2. So I think they should have kept Halloween 2 canon. I mean, you could have even gone as far as to be like, oh, the information about him being his sister was wrong. Sure, that's more of a stretch, but honestly, they should have found a way to keep it in continuity. The next remedy for Blumhouse's Halloween trilogy is focusing more on the Strodes. Sure, you get a lot of Laurie in 2018 and in Ends, but you don't ever really get a lot of Allison or Karen. Now, I was lukewarm on Karen and Allison. I didn't really care either way. I thought they had their moments, but largely were forgettable. They were not Josh Hartnett in Halloween H2O, and they definitely weren't Jamie Lloyd. So I just felt like it was a missed opportunity there. We could have gotten more development from those 2 characters, specifically Allison. I don't think Allison really gets anything of note to do until Halloween Ends. Sure, she takes up arms in Halloween Kills, but she's just like everybody else. She's not differentiating herself from them. I feel like if we would have focused more on those characters, learned their psyche, learned what makes them tick, learned what bothers them, what triggers them, whatever that may be, it would have only helped these movies. It would have helped us get more invested in those characters, and it would have given us that necessary emotional attachment to these characters, because the way they handled it, largely, they're just throwaway, and you really only care about Laurie Strode. And while it is her story, I'd argue in every iteration before this, we cared about the offspring of Laurie Strode. The next thing that could have really helped this trilogy was cleaning up the dialogue. Now, if you remember, I did a video series over the last few months of what went right and what went wrong with certain timelines in the Halloween franchise, and I specifically called out the dialogue in the David Gordon Green trilogy. Now, whether that be the use of grandmother in Halloween 2018, which has never sounded right, it's just so like people don't talk that way, whether it's the way the teenagers talk and interact in Halloween 2018 that just does not feel organic whatsoever, the way the townspeople are chanting "Evil dies tonight" and they're really over the top at Halloween Kills to the point where it's like, we get it, dude, or Tommy Doyle for that matter. There's a lot about the dialogue that you could have fixed in these movies, because the problem is when you have moments of dialogue dialogue that stick out like that in a trilogy, it can really undercut the tension and severity of certain moments. And I get it, Danny McBride is a comedic writer, and you can see his fingerprints all over these screenplays, but I think they should have gone through another pass or two, because there's a lot of interactions with these characters that just do not feel real. They don't feel lived in. It almost feels like AI, like it just doesn't make sense to me. Kids don't talk this way. People don't talk to their family members this way. Townspeople don't react this way. And far be it from me to criticize Halloween Kills' treatment of the town, because I have made a video before talking about how people are missing the point. The hysteria of Halloween Kills was the point. However, I can say that and also agree they overdid it. They bludgeoned us to death with it. The next fix here is clarity on the character of Michael Myers. See, I've said before, in Halloween 2018, they announced that he was going back to being a man, a motiveless shape, no rhyme, no reason, but he was a man. And in Halloween Ends, they very much returned to that. And then you've got Halloween Kills in the middle there, where they allude to much, much more. Now, I've heard the counter argument, well, that's just the townspeople. See, the townspeople, in their hysteria, they're creating this version of Michael Myers. That's not actually Michael Myers. And you're not wrong, but it's very clear in Halloween Kills that David Gordon Green was alluding to greater things. Look, I think no further than the scene in Halloween Kills where Michael Myers kills the mob, while you have Laurie Strode giving a monologue about how every time he kills, he transcends. Now, on a macro level, you could say that that is just metaphorical, that is the belief of this town that plays into the hysteria. But with the scene going on in juxtaposition to her monologue, after Michael Myers has been shot, stabbed, beaten to a bloody pulp on the ground, he gets up and takes out every single one of those people in the mob, one by one. David Gordon Green clearly cut that scene together with Laurie's monologue to help drive that point forward even more so. That Michael Myers is more than just a man. This legend that this town has made him out to be, maybe that's accurate. And if you're going back to him being a man, and at this point a geriatric man, there's no way he could have withstood the stuff he does in Halloween Kills, and then gotten up and killed everybody. And then there's other things peppered throughout Halloween Kills, like the inference that there was going to be some grander reason there with Judith Myers, or with that bedroom, or the radio tower mention. They just didn't really know what they were going for in that movie. Part of it is the town's hysteria, and another part of it planting seeds for things they hadn't fully realized yet, and by the time they got to the realization in the third film, they dropped almost all of it. So I think they really should have tightened all of that up with Michael Myers, specifically in Halloween Kills. Now, the next thing they should have done, I hear you guys, and I agree with you. They should have introduced the character of Corey Cunningham sooner than Halloween Ends. Look, I love the character, and I love the plot line. I think it is super interesting. I think it's something that Halloween has toyed with many times throughout the franchise's history. It's something John Carpenter was a fan of. It was something a lot of fans talked about for years wanting to see. So it was interesting to me to see the 50-50 split on this. You either loved it or you hated it. But at the same time, it wasn't when you think about it more, because it's like, well, it wasn't set up at all. We had 2 movies before this. You didn't even allude to it. There was no passing mention. There was nothing given to us to make us believe that this was ever going to be a thing. Now, I've heard people say, well, you couldn't have really introduced him in Halloween 2018 because that was supposed to be a movie about Laurie and the Strodes. Yeah, I agree. So the fix here is you bring him into Halloween Kills. What better movie to add a new plot device that's going to play out in future movies than Halloween Kills, the movie where the town is all riled up, the hysteria is at an all-time high. You could have even worked the Corey being seen as this boogeyman figure, the next iteration of Michael Myers, into Halloween Kills, I think a lot better than Halloween Ends. After introducing him in that movie and us getting to know him, and then amidst all the craziness that happens in that movie, you could have ended that movie with him feeling ostracized, alone, and vilified, which would have set him up for his turn in Halloween Ends. It would have been far less jarring to people. It would have made a lot more sense. But they didn't do that. And again, as somebody that loves Halloween Ends, I cannot deny that Kills needed to introduce this earlier, because Kills is largely just a filler movie anyway. So I don't understand why they didn't do it. Except They didn't know yet. And again, I'm going to keep driving that point home because I think it's very important. They did not know where this trilogy was going to end. No matter what they've said over the years, they just didn't. You might have had general ideas. General ideas probably meant, okay, in the third one, we're going to focus on the transference of evil and Laurie's going to kill Michael Myers. That doesn't mean you have everything figured out, and clearly they didn't. So I think introducing the character of Corey Cunningham in Halloween Kills would have greatly benefited this trilogy. And I think in doing that, you would be handling the character of Corey Cunningham better and the character of Michael Myers better, both in Halloween Kills. Because then by the time you get to Halloween Ends, once it's established that Michael Myers truly is just a man, there's no greater legend there, then in Halloween Ends, you're not as shocked to see him get his ass beat by Corey. Furthermore, you're not surprised to see Corey take the turn he takes because it's been set up before. I really think that Halloween Kills is the movie in this trilogy that needed another year or so. And the final thing I think they could have done to really tighten up this trilogy was the handling of the supporting cast. Explaining their reasoning, giving them more time, giving them more development, whatever you want to call it. Look at Sartain in Halloween 2018. He's set up at first to be the new Loomis, and then takes this wild off-the-wall turn. Now, whether you love or hate it, kind of came out of left field, and it kind of seemed corny. It seemed like a contrivance to try to get Michael Myers free, which is exactly what it was. Then you look at Halloween Kills, and you've got a lot of the characters on the periphery that we know of that don't get enough to do. Lindsay Wallace. Kyle Richards has one great scene in Halloween Kills, and then she's just largely forgotten for the rest of that movie and Halloween Ends. And it's like, what the hell? Like, we don't have anything more with Lindsay? She's literally one of the OG survivors from the original movie. Look at Halloween Ends. You don't get anything with the sheriff. You don't get anything with Will Patton, aside from his relationship with Laurie, which is super weird because Halloween Kills heavily focused on Will Patton. It heavily focused on Hawkins and his development, making him a character that we could sympathize with and we could get behind. And then Halloween Ends, they're just like, oh yeah, that didn't really matter all that much. And one of the most frustrating things is some of these characters were really interesting. There was a lot of meat on the bone there that I would have loved to have seen them flesh out. And they largely get dropped in every movie that they're brought up in. And I get it, wanting to focus on the Strodes and focus on Michael Myers, but as I said earlier in this video, I think they dropped the ball on that a lot of the time. I think the overwhelming theme here that we keep bumping up against when talking about this trilogy is flaws in the writing. Now, whether that is in the dialogue, whether that is in the characters, what the characters are given to do, how much we get to know the characters, their arcs, whatever it may be, that was the issue in this trilogy. Look, a lot of people have given this trilogy and its creative team a lot of shit, and some of it warranted. But I never felt like a lot of that was fair to David Gordon Green, because I feel like largely the issue with this trilogy lies in the storytelling and lies with the characters. Almost everything I mentioned in this video that I felt would help improve this trilogy has to do with the writing. So look, I mean, love or hate the Blumhouse trilogy, I think there's a lot of things here that most of us can agree on. Whether you agree with me on my take on some of these movies, I think we can both agree, yeah, they should have fixed these things. They could have made these things better. Maybe you love this trilogy to death. You have no complaints with it. But I think even if that's the case, you can go, yeah, but those things kind of would have made me like it even more. Whatever the case is, I want to know down below what you guys think of the fixes that I proposed for this trilogy in this video. I want to hear if you guys think they would have helped it, or if you think absolutely not, they would have made it worse. Whatever it is, make sure to chime in down below in the comments section. I want to thank all of you guys so much for watching the video. Please make sure to leave it a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. This is Nick at the Lost River Drive-In, and I'm pulling out.